Whoa, 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 whoa. Hey, stop right there. I see what you're doing. You're thinking, ooh, that title sounded kind of interesting, but he hasn't really got started yet. Maybe I'll just click on to the next video. This one probably isn't for me. Well, give me a minute, okay? This one really is quite special. It's one of those stories that comes along every once in a while where you just think, oh my God, how did the author even think of this? This one is out of this world. It's wild, it's crazy, it's insane. You're not going to believe it, trust me. Okay, so buckle up, my dear friends. You're not going anywhere. You're about to listen to one of the strangest stories you've ever heard. That's enough to get you tempted, isn't it? All right then, without further ado, Don't Make Wishes When Your Speaker's Pumping Tunes by Thomas Russell. Everyone knows that there are rules for making wishes. Birthday wishes don't work if you tell. Genies have a whole thing about romance and resurrection. The bigger half of the wishbone gets the fulfilled desire. Yada shmada. Even little kids get it. When it comes to making wishes, every method has, well, a method. That's why those monkey paw stories the Simpsons riffed on were so popular. The problem is, as me and my college housemate Jess found out, the reels for real wish-granting thingamies don't come on the box. I know this for a fact because the wish-granting Chinese finger trap that got us in this mess was delivered in one. If the matchbox, the small tube of golden fabric arrived in, had a label with instructions for use, I might not have been writing this from a bomb shelter. Yes, Jeremy, Todd, those cops, they'd probably all still be alive. But no such luck, right? Not for Chase Woods. She gets the wish-granting artifact that's all hidden consequences and unintended tragedy, doesn't she? God damn it, universe. Not even in an, oh, you were greedy, you deserved it way either. I'd love it if this was some ironic thing, you know. Like if I'd had some character flaw that got me in this mess and brought this all on myself. That's not what happened, though. Oh, God. Nothing about this is fair. I didn't do anything that makes this some kind of twisted justice. Neither did Jess. If we'd known you were supposed to make the wishes out loud, none of this would have happened. All I wanted was a little good luck for my midterms. Didn't even think it would work, for Christ's sake. Okay, rewinding a bit. Last week we were drunk shopping on Etsy. Bit of retail therapy and tipsy giggling to break up study stress, you know. Jeremy, Jess's boyfriend, was tending bar. Todd was in his room doing, well, whatever it is Todd did in his room, smoking pot and playing Tekken, probably. That gave us the whole living room to ourselves. When Jess and I had the floor, things got a little silly, let's say. We'd made more than one unsober purchase that had all 4 residents of our rented ranch-style house on the edge of town confused. Jess was the one who ordered the finger trap, but we only knew that because the matchbox was in an envelope addressed to her, not me. There's no record of the purchase on her PayPal, though. We couldn't find the item listing on Etsy either, or even the seller when we tried to look them up after. It would be the darndest thing if this whole situation wasn't balls to the wall fucked in so many other ways, but neither of us could remember buying it or even viewing it. Okay, so our giggling may have been a little more than tipsy, but neither of us was hammered. We could recall most of the evening, even if some details were a little hazy. Both of us have a total blank when it comes to wish-granting Chinese finger traps, though. Todd reckons he overheard Jess ranting loudly about using something to become a princess like Meghan Markle, which could have been it. We must have ordered it, right? What other explanation is there? Well, wait. What am I saying? Todd's dead, Jess is dead, Jeremy is dead, and I'm holed up in some abandoned Cold War prepper bunker listening to the thud, thud, thud on the roof grow quieter. Nothing about this shit has an explanation. Chances are just as good that we never ordered that damned finger trap at all. We were probably picked randomly. Just some cruel, fucking cosmic joke. Maybe Jess's family sent it. Maybe there's like some dark secret shit going on with her folks, and she died before we could find out. Fuck, maybe she knew. Maybe I was supposed to... No, that's stupid, Chase. Jess would have known to turn the speaker off if she was in on it. She wouldn't risk... Fuck, can't even write it down. she wouldn't risk what happened to her, risk that, just to set me up for some ritual or curse or something. Nobody would. Like I said, when the finger trap arrived, there were no instructions. It was in an envelope addressed to Jess Stamfy. No return address. Stamps a little faded and held on with transparent tape rather than the lick and stick adhesive on their underside. And props to the postman. How he deciphered that nearly illegible handwriting to figure our address, I don't know. Even if he delivered it at all, of course. The stamps and postal instructions could be a red herring. We don't have a doorbell cam, so yeah, if the finger trap was hand-delivered by some shady-ass individual instead of the usual post, I'd never know. Wouldn't surprise me, though. Jess damn near stepped on the envelope when she came through the front door after her Pilates class downtown. It was waiting for her on the doormat. Both Todd and I were in, but hadn't heard anything come through the mailbox. We were, Look, he was in my room, and he had to do a mad dash across the hall in his boxers before Jess turned a corner. Point is, I came to the living room and made a whole show of, oh yeah, I was just having a nap, so I just woke up. Jess didn't look up. She was sitting at the table, envelope already open, staring at the matchbox. What's that? I asked, taking a seat opposite her after grabbing an apple from the fruit bowl. It was on the mat, addressed to me. Don't recognize the handwriting, though, Jess replied, turning the matchbox between her fingers. She idly flicked it open. That's when we saw the damn finger trap. It was hard to miss, right? It was made of golden threads. Now, not golden threads like you get on parade uniforms or stage costumes, though. These threads glowed almost as if they were liquid metal that forgot it wasn't solid. The trap was about 6 inches long, and there was no art or anything on its surface aside from 2 lines of text. One was written in Chinese. I took a photo and looked at one of those pic-to-text apps. We didn't know what it meant, or think to even check. And of course we didn't. There were English words under the Chinese characters, so we just assumed it was a direct translation. The English text just said, "Make it so." Ah, a random Etsy purchase, I smirked. Jess shook her head. No, I don't think so, she said. I mean, maybe right. I don't think why I'd order a Chinese finger trap. I can. You love China. She grinned. I love ramen. It's not the same thing. I don't think ramen's even Chinese, is it? I shrugged. My mouth was dry and I suddenly was very thirsty as well. That's why I got up from the table and headed to the fridge. The mouth dryness wasn't because of the finger trap, before you get excited. It was because, well, Todd was in his room. Jess's Pilates class wasn't the only calorie-burning activity to happen that morning. The only reason I'm bringing my parchness up is because, en route to the refrigerator, I did what I always do. I turned on our Bluetooth speaker. With no input needed, the device connected to my phone, playing the last playlist on Spotify. I sputtered when the first sensual smooth saxophone heavy track from my Todd Time mix started blaring into the kitchen, and I quickly shuffled across to my auto-curated, most played compilation. You know how I know that Jess and I were supposed to make the damn wishes out loud? The Weather Girl started playing. You know the jam, It's Raining Men. I tried to ignore Jess's cocked eyebrow after the speaker blunder exposed the very obviously intended for sexy time playlist I'd been listening to. So, that thing says "Make It So" on it, right? Reckon it's for you, granting wishes, like a genie. I'm pretty sure I turned a bright scarlet at her response. Why, Chase? You got someone in mind for that playlist? No, it's just, look, I just like jazz. Yeah, sure, Chase, sure. 13-year-old Jess went to every bar mitzvah, every cute boy at the temple because she loved hearing Alia. Jess was laughing when I sat back down next to her, and I picked up the brief glance she shot in the direction of Todd's room. Through the wall, we could hear the muted chugga-chugga-chugga of him losing his way through another game of Call of Duty. You know what? She must have known, mustn't she? For 6 months, the 3 of us lived together, and I never brought a guy back. Pretty sus. Todd hadn't brought a girl back either, but was, well, Todd's cute, but he wasn't exactly confident. I'd made at least 3 moves, let's put it that way. Humidity is rising. Barometer's getting low. According to all sources, the street's the place to go. Are we going to use this thing then? I glanced down to see Jess had slit one end of the finger trap on a slender digit. She was grinning ear to ear, probably still riding the serotonin high of all those burned calories at her Pilates class. I rolled my eyes, but stuck my index finger into the other end of the shimmering fabric. It couldn't hurt, right? I wish, Jess started saying, but I raised my finger to my lips. This is, in hindsight, the single dumbest thing I've ever done. Wishes don't work if you say them out loud, I cried, grinning too, totally unaware of how wrong and dangerous my naive presumptions were. True, Jess giggled. Okay, I'm going to count down from 3. When I do, think your wish real hard, and we'll pull out the trap. We were both giggling by this point, lost in a bit of the random silliness of it all. Again, study distractions were always jumped on, you know. How do you know it'll work? I asked. Well, I'll know if I wake up tomorrow with a DM from a recently divorced Prince Harry of England. You'll know it worked if you wake up next to... Okay, all right, I get your point. 'Cause tonight, for the first time, just about 10:30. 3. Jess began her countdown. I focused my mind, although not on Todd. I didn't need a wish for him, but I think Jess knew that, despite her teasing. She's pretty astute. As I said, all I wanted was a little good luck for my midterms. For the first time in history. 2. Jess had closed her eyes, and I'd shut mine too. I pictured myself sitting there in the exam hall, my tight chest subdued by the placebo confidence that comes with knowing you have some superstitious mumbo-jumbo looking out for you. I thought it was just my imagination at the time, but I felt the trap get warmer as the seconds counted down. Now I know better than to think the increase in temp was all in my head. It's gonna start raining, man. 1. I yelled the wish in my mind, my inner monologue as loud, clear, and directed as it ever had been. I wish, I shouted in my head, that I passed my exams. Then we pushed our fingers together. It's raining men, hallelujah. The living room rattled. There was a loud crack like a bolt of lightning struck the building, so deafening that Jess and I fell from our chairs. It's one of the sounds so loud you don't just hear it, you feel it, you know. The kind of volume where the tinnitus takes about a day to fade away after. We both shrieked in alarm, and from the floor I saw Todd barreling out of his room, face full of panic. Jesus fucking Christ, he yelled, running over to me. What the fuck was that? Chase, are you okay? The rest of the day was a write-off. Jess and I were, understandably, more than a little freaked out. Jeremy decided to swing by in the afternoon. I remember I was more than a little bitter about that. I kind of wanted Jess to go to his, so I could curl up next to Todd and listen to him waffle the stoner nonsense. The kind of rambling Chase Woods hated on paper, but found endearing and charming in real life, much to her intense annoyance, at first. I should have been just honest with Todd about us. The heart wants what the heart wants. If only I hadn't been so focused on appearances, on my stupid little white picket fence long-term suburbia goals, I'd take 1,000 happily ever afters supporting Todd's crazy business ideas while we barely made ends meet, if you give me the choice now. By about 9 o'clock, we'd calmed down. Our investigation into the finger trap had come up empty, but after a day had passed, we felt confident enough to start putting the weirdness down to overreactive imaginations. Everything from earthquakes to a freak electrical fault was posited as an explanation for the bang. As for the finger trap itself, Jeremy decided we'd been too drunk to remember ordering it. Jess clung to that lie with everything she had, so the subject was dropped. The finger trap had vanished almost as soon as our fingertips connected, right when the whatever it was that damn near shook the house off its foundation struck. Looking back, I think Todd and Jeremy were just humoring us, trying to stop us from panicking, you know. I even started doubting myself. As much as I hate the silly women, the men are here now, you just got hysterical aspect of how that played out. Maybe it was just a folie à deux, a shared exam stress hallucination. As the evening wore on, things began to become a little more normal. We were playing cards against humanity when it started. It was 10:27 when Todd excused himself to use the bathroom. And that was the last time I ever saw him. We didn't hear anything from the bathroom. We were sat around the table watching Jeremy deal out the next hand while we waited for Todd to come back, and there was a dull thud just outside the front door. I remember looking at the clock in a who could be knocking at this hour way. 10:30 exactly, although I didn't quite get the significance yet. We shot each other confused looks, and Jeremy went to check outside the door. That was when we heard his high-pitched yells that Jess and I ran after. She screamed when she saw what waited on the porch. Well, I didn't. I bellowed, howled, shrieked, and wailed. I was terrified, but greater than my terror and confusion was despair. There, on the path leading from our front door to the sidewalk, was a body. Todd's body. I didn't believe it. I refused to. I couldn't. I ran back into the house, hammering on the bathroom door. It was still locked. Jeremy and Jess had to pull me away from it. I pounded my fists into it over and over, sobbing, my assault on the wood unrelenting even when my knuckles started to bleed. It's not Todd. It's not Todd. It's not Todd. The words rang in my ears, and it took me a few minutes to realize I was the one screeching them. When Jeremy kicked the door open, the bathroom was empty. Todd's cell phone was on the floor, screen cracked like he'd dropped it. A half-torn sheet of toilet paper lay next to it, and the seat was still up. Todd never left the seat up. It was one of the reasons Jess agreed to break her no-boys living arrangement stipulation. The side of the empty bathroom had me quarterbacking my way through Jeremy and Jess in the doorway. I sprinted back to the front of the house, collapsing to my knees when I ran out onto the porch to see the body was still there. Well, body's a stretch. Remains is probably more appropriate. I only knew it was Todd because he'd landed feet first, I think. His face, locked in a mix of confusion and fear, was relatively intact. Yes, an eyeball had been dislocated, and his snapped jaw hung limp, tongue lolling out of his swollen mouth. But that was a much better condition than the rest of him. Todd's legs weren't anywhere to be seen. His sneakers were. They'd both been thrown across the garden from the force of the impact, snapping his feet from his shins at the ankles. The rest of the limbs, from calf to thighs, had been completely obliterated. Todd's head, arms, and torso were at the center of a crater in the paving slabs, a red, gore-filled pit about half a foot deep, with the semi-liquid, eviscerated chunks of his legs pooling at the center. His organic slush was added to with every passing second by the innards leaking from his chest and belly. Todd's intestines, kidneys, liver, I could see all of them through a huge tear to the left of his belly button. The impact had severed his spinal cord, pushing the half attached to his pelvis through his front, the sharp bone lancing outward and piercing the flesh as though he were a retreating soldier in World War I who'd received a bayonet to the lower lumbar. I didn't know Todd had fallen, of course. I didn't really know anything. As you can imagine, I was in full-blown shock. I hadn't put any of the pieces together. Didn't even remember the song. It's only hindsight and having nothing to do in this damn bunker that's given me enough mental space to connect the dots. Jess and Jeremy were panicked too, of course, but without the added sense of profound loss, they had enough wherewithal to call the cops. Can't remember if Jeremy or Jess made the phone call. Doesn't really matter though, does it? Jeremy and Jess were both already long dead before any help arrived. Our student house is in a cul-de-sac. Now, obviously the loud crunch of someone smacking into the paving slabs, not to mention the screaming that followed, had the neighbors coming to investigate. I remember looking up through tears and howling to see the concerned face of Mr. Borgman, the a harmless old guy that lived across the street. Mr. B had walked across to our porch on his Zimmer. He didn't look scared. Maybe his time in Nam meant he wasn't fazed by the sight of Todd's body. The only expression on his soft old face was concern. He just about managed to get out a sentence when I looked up at him. "Good God, girl. What happened? You okay? Have you caught..." Then he vanished. There was no sound, no warning. The space in front of me that he'd occupied just emptied. 1 second there was Mr. Borgman bending down offering me his hand. And then there wasn't. I stopped wailing, so confused and shocked by the sight of a pensioner vanishing before my eyes that even my despair over Todd couldn't halt the barrage of WTFs flooding my train of thought. Then we heard a quiet whoosh of something heavy falling from the sky. Quiet at first, but louder with every passing second. We heard the screaming before long. Again, almost inaudible initially, but it was hauntingly clear within a few moments. It's like the unmistakable sound of someone pleading with the universe as they plummeted toward the ground. Mr. B landed on his Zimmer. The crunch as his spine connected with and buckled the steel walking frame cut through every other sound, from the howling wind to the distant sirens. I sat there for a few moments, blinking, my face covered in flecks of warm red moisture. That was the eye of the storm, I think. The last moments of calm before pandemonium fully broke loose. There was a family that lived next door to Mr. B, the Hasshausers. Now, Papa Hasshauser was part way through ushering his wife and 2 girls back in the house when he was taken. Everyone on the street looked up, and the panic started literally the second we spied Papa Hasshauser's flailing body about half a mile in the air. I've seen a lot of fucked up stuff today, but the faces of Mrs. Hasshauser and their daughters when Mr. Hasshauser disintegrated into red mist upon hitting the people carrier in the driveway is definitely a contender for the most PTSD generating. I sat there on the path for what felt like minutes, my mouth blubbing up and down like a fish, watching our quiet cul-de-sac erupt into blind terror. My ears started ringing, the screams and thuds and beep 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 of the Hasshausers' people carrier's alarm melting into a warbled, incomprehensible mess. Jess was holding Jeremy's hand when it was his turn. I only know that because she'd been leaning on him, and the sudden absence of his support made her fall over sideways. No, Jeremy, no, not you. Even though damn near every fiancé, mother, girlfriend, sister, wife, and daughter in the cul-de-sac was shouting at the top of their lungs, my ears honed in on Jess's trembling cries. I turned from the carnage to see her sprint into the house, coming back out with a sofa cushion under each arm. I know what she'd intended to do. Obviously, it was never going to work, but she wasn't thinking straight, was she? You know, when JFK got shot, the first thing his wife did was lean over to the back of the car to start scooping up the parts of his brain and skull. She was in shock. All her mind could think was, put John back together. I think that's what happened with Jess. And I was in shock too, which is why I couldn't stop her. All I could do was watch, paralyzed by my own emotional inertia. She positioned herself beneath where Jeremy tumbled. "Jess, wait, don't." I put the pieces together and found my voice eventually, but it was already way too late. She stood there, a cushion in each hand, and met my gaze. There was a wry smile on her lips, like a kid who'd found out they're the only one in class with 100% on the test. Then Jeremy landed. Jess never even had time to scream. The force of Jeremy's body colliding into her outstretched arms killed her instantly. Small blessing, I guess. It should have been instant for me, though. But no. God forbid Chase Woods stupidly witnessed the most traumatic shit like ever in real time. And my stupid-ass senses slowed right the fuck down when their faces connected. She'd been looking up, lifted her head just as his screaming one crashed into it. As inch after inch of Jeremy drove into Jess's skull with the force and velocity of a freight train, the cranial bones of both flattened, exploded horizontally outward like frickin' water balloons full of grey brain matter and blood-coated bone fragments. Their eyes were catapulted from their sockets, the optic cords of the lovers entwining mid-air before the impact made every one of the 4 detached balls pop. Jess and Jeremy compressed into each other, neither's body able to resist the other. Like a damn black hole was between them, sucking them both into the gore-filled crater in the sidewalk between 2 ruptured couch cushions. The only thing that remained of either were Jess's feet and shins, which still stood tall amidst the organic debris like, well, that day back in 2001 we all remember. The one preppers like the nutjob who built this bunker in the 80s claimed they all saw coming. That comparison's kind of fucked her. Yeah, sorry. It's genuinely the first thing my brain thought, though once I'd blinked a couple of times and realized what had just happened. Well, shock, dude. It's a doozy. Shock's also the reason I noticed the glistening blood-soaked car keys on the ground. If I wasn't in shock, if I'd been thinking coherently, I'd have started to cry because my best friend, her partner, and my sort of secret housemate partner were all dead. Shock's what kept me alive, politically correct or not. I honestly only saw the keys because my mind was so calmly going, those keys there, one's covered in Jess and Jeremy's blood. They're kind of like a fire truck. I've never nearly died as often as I did on the drive from our house to the field where local boy Todd's secret smoking bunker was hidden. He'd taken me out there a couple of times, but never Jess or Jeremy. Just me. I think that's when I first knew he liked me, you know. Said it was his safe place, where he always used to come as a kid to get high and think about stuff. Figure out who he was before he found himself. Don't think he ever realized just how literal of a safe place these 4 cinder block walls would eventually become. And if you're wondering why I haven't called the cops, it's because they were already on my trail when I arrived. A fair few of them, the man cops of course, are already dead. Gone the same way as Jeremy, Todd, Mr. B, Papa Hasshauser, and about a half dozen guys walking on the street or unfortunate enough to have been driving in the opposite direction. A couple of lady cops died too, only because the man cops behind the wheel got teleported half a mile in the air, mid-high-speed pursuit. Thank God I opted to live in a small town and drive in for lectures, yeah? Lord knows how high the fucking body count would be if I lived in the city. It wasn't until I got into the bunker and managed to stop screaming that I got calm enough to figure out what was happening. Yeah, I'm pretty smart, guys. Mentioned midterms already, didn't I? If you think I'm majoring in creative writing or art history or some other cereal box subject, guess again. Astrophysics, mother lovers, with a minor in data science. That's why my thing with Todd is so it's got nothing to do with the F on his passport. It's because he's an idiot. Honestly, one of the dumbest guys I've ever met. Mr. Bean meets Homer Simpson level stupid. The only thing that enraged me more than his idiocy was how cute I found him, despite myself. I couldn't bring him to the gatherings at Professor Keensel's house. I'd be laughed out of there faster than Todd fell from the clouds. I should have done though, shouldn't I? God damn it, Chase Woods. Well, I've been down here for a few hours. Plenty of time to emotionally unpack, backtrack, and realize where things went horribly, horribly wrong. I already knew the finger trap was all behind this. That was pretty freaking obvious. It had disappeared after Jess and I tried to make a wish. So had the instructionless matchbox, which meant the chances of this nightmare not being connected to that slither of shimmering gold fabric were slim to none. It took me a few minutes to realize where we'd fucked up. It was me. It was my fault. I was the one that told Jess to shush, to not speak her wish out loud. Well, the finger trap had listened out for a command. Maybe 2 people aren't even supposed to use it, who knows? Apart from Jess's counting, the only words it could hear were those blasting out of my Bluetooth speaker. The lyrics to It's Raining Men. So this thing, whatever it was, had decided to interpret that as a command. Make it so. Granted the wish. Now all the men in our vicinity get transported into the sky. Well, the finger trap had been told that, as of 10:30 this evening, it would rain men. So it would be. Doesn't mean biological males either. Now, some of the Insta corpses I had to swerve dramatically to avoid were young. None were children. There were one or two little boys in the cul-de-sac, and thankfully I could still see them in the rear-view mirror as I drove away. The youngest victims of the finger trap's wish were just about teenagers. And that's the connection that led me to backtrack and remember the music I'd put on. The detail that made it all click. 13-year-olds were boys by my reckoning. Jess was proudly Jewish. Boys are considered men in the eyes of God after their 13th birthday. It's the whole point of a bar mitzvah, right? Yes, there's a little more to it than that. The golden finger trap must have been using loose definitions. Todd was another clue. If this was tied to biology, he would have been safe, but no. Sadly, the only box one needs to tick to fall victim to this whatever it is, this wish, or curse, or fucking freak anomaly of physics, is to have an identity that incorporates the broad sense concept of man. If you fit into the man category to somebody somewhere, you're fair game. I wish Jess was still alive. For the obvious reasons too, but the envelope was addressed to her. She's the missing piece of the puzzle. She Jacqueline Kennedy'd herself off the board. There has to be some meaning behind the finger trap showing up with her name on the package. Guess I'm never really going to find out, huh? Yeah, sadly, this is a goodbye, BT Dubs. I can't get out of this bunker. The air pipe is clogged. There's just too many bodies piled on top of it. I already tried opening the hatch. I don't want to die in a fucking bunker. Duh, but I'm stuck. They stopped sending cops about an hour ago. I think they're sending feds now. Thud, thud, thud keeps getting softer as the men the finger trap curse takes have more bodies to land on. Oh, maybe they'll start surviving the fall if the pile gets big enough. I can faintly hear the warble of a female voice on a megaphone. She must be a spook. I don't reckon it would have taken too long for the CIA or some MIB equivalent we don't know about to show up. Hell, if they can make this stop, bring it on. I'll spend the rest of my life in a box if it means they can make it stop raining men. Jeez, I can't believe I typed that out in full. Unironic earnest. What is your life, Chase Woods? What is your life? I doubt this will make the news. Not to get all QAnon about it, but weird shit like this gets covered up all the time. You just know it does. They let us know about Area 51 because it's a good distraction from Area 52. They fessed up about MK Ultra and lied about its failure because it worked. We all know we're not getting given the full picture. I honestly don't care about that though. That was Todd's area of special interest until, well, you've just read about the day I had. I wish I'd listened a lot fucking more to him, let's put it that way. Fuck. I'm starting to get lightheaded. I must be running out. You know what? I don't care. This is how I go, it's how I go. Can't exactly go back to normal after this, can I? I just drove through a small town and caused God knows how many deaths. It'll get written off as a terrorist attack. They'll say I had a rifle or something probably, won't they? I mean, I'm not exactly pale enough to play the mental breakdown sympathy card. That's if I even get offered prison. They might just shoot me here, save themselves the trouble. Let the spooks explain away the bodies falling from the sky as freak wind turbulence or some such bullshit. FML. Listen, I'm going to shut my eyes. Don't send help. Can't call cops. Cops are here, all dead. Not lady cops, just man cops. Send lady cops. I wanted to warn you. Don't make mistakes. Wish out loud when a weird finger trap shows up and turn off the music. Bad. FML. It's raining, man. So, hello again, my dear friends. This is another funny, weird little idea that's been trundling around in the depths of my subconscious for quite a while now. So I finally got down to putting it in words once again, and it's an interesting take on a much loved song from the 1970s. So I hope this doesn't ruin the song for you, but if it does, I'm sorry. It's an intriguing and much different take on the lyrical content. Let me say that. Okay, so I'm going to stop waffling on now and get on with it. The Yellow Ribbon by Darius McCorkindale. The bus trundled down the lonely road, its engine humming a monotonous tune as it carried its passengers closer to their destinations. Among them sat Tom, his hands trembling slightly as he clutched a worn, much-read draft of a letter. The words were etched into his mind. I'm coming home. I've done my time. Now I've got to know what is and isn't mine. If you received my letter telling you I'd soon be free, then you'll know just what to do if you still want me. Tom had spent 3 long years in prison, his life turned upside down by a bank robbery gone wrong. At least the millions he'd stolen were hidden away, safely stashed in his house, waiting for him. If he could just bide his time, all could still work out well in the end. He wasn't alone in his cell during those years, though. He'd shared it with a man named Mark, a cunning and ruthless criminal who had listened intently to Tom's every word about the money and his plans. Mark had seemingly turned over a new leaf during his time in incarceration and had devised a plan of his own. He would help Tom craft the perfect letter to his wife, Mary, carefully suggesting the words to ensure she would understand the message. Tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree, Tom had written, his hope pinned on this one simple request. If she still wanted him, she would tie the ribbon, and he would know it was safe to come home. If not, he would stay on the bus and vanish from her life forever. After all their time locked up together in such close proximity, it turned out that Mark was released just a few days earlier than Tom. He had assured Tom that they would work together on the outside, that he would help get him back on his feet, that Mark had great plans that would shape the lives of both of them. As the bus finally approached his hometown, Tom's heart was pounding in his chest. He stared out of the window, searching desperately for the old oak tree in his front yard. He needed to see the ribbon to know that Mary still wanted him, that there was a future waiting for him. The bus driver, sensing Tom's anxiety, slowed as they neared the house. "Bus driver, please look for me," Tom had whispered. "I could not bear to see what I might see." The bus rounded the final bend, and there it was, the old oak tree. Tom's eyes widened in disbelief. It wasn't just one ribbon. The tree was adorned with hundreds of yellow ribbons, fluttering in the breeze like a beacon of hope. The passengers cheered, sharing in his joy. "I'm really still in prison, and my love, she holds the key. A simple yellow ribbon is what I need to set me free," Tom had written. Now here it was, the true symbol of his freedom, of Mary's love. He stepped off the bus, his legs unsteady as he approached the house. As he got closer, he noticed the front door was slightly ajar, and a sense of foreboding washed over him. He called out for Mary as he entered, but the silence that greeted him was chilling. He walked through the house, his heart sinking with each step. The living room was in disarray, furniture overturned and papers scattered across the floor. He moved to the bedroom, dread pooling in his stomach. There, he found Mary. She lay motionless on the bed, her eyes staring blankly at the ceiling, a pool of blood spreading beneath her. Tom fell to his knees, a strangled cry escaping his lips. Beside her, he noticed a piece of paper hastily scrawled. With shaking hands, he picked it up and read the words. "The yellow ribbon has led me right here. Thanks for everything. Turns out I was the one who got back on the bus. So now you need to forget about us. Mark. Tom's mind raced, piecing together the horror. Mark had been released early, had come to the house and had murdered Mary before stealing the hidden money. The yellow ribbons fluttered mockingly outside, a cruel reminder of the hope and love that had been there, now shattered by betrayal and greed. Despair overwhelmed him as he realized the true cost of his trust. Mark had taken everything from him, leaving nothing but sorrow and death in his wake. Tom staggered out of the house, the ribbons a blur through his tears, and fell to the ground, the weight of his loss crushing him. The bus had long since departed, leaving behind the haunting echoes of a promise broken and a love destroyed. And Mark, with millions in his grasp, had disappeared into the night, his cruel note the only trace of his treachery. So how you doing? A couple of old school tunes there turned into horrific creepypastas. Ready for one more? Okay, I don't think you can miss this one. So, yep, give it a listen and see if you can guess the title, okay? In the Dunes on the Cape by Darius McCorkindale. The dim glow of the streetlights barely penetrated the heavy fog that rolled through the quiet suburban neighborhood. Inside a seemingly ordinary house, the muffled ticking of a clock was the only sound disturbing the heavy silence. Jack sat in bed, the flickering light of the bedside lamp casting long shadows on the walls. He was tired of his wife Lila. They'd been together too long, their relationship stagnant and lifeless, like a worn-out recording of a favorite song played one too many times. He glanced over at Lila, who was sound asleep, her face serene and unaware. As Jack flipped through the newspaper, his eyes landed on the personal columns. He read them out of idle curiosity, but one ad caught his attention and held it fast. If you like pina coladas and getting caught in the rain, if you're not into yoga, if you have half a brain, if you like making love at midnight in the dunes on the Cape, then I'm the love that you looked for. Write to me and escape. Well, his pulse quickened. An escape. The word resonated deeply within him. He'd fantasized about it many times, leaving behind his dull life and his cold, distant wife. But his fantasies often took a darker turn. Jack wasn't just tired of his wife. He had a sinister secret. He was a serial killer, his dark urges satisfied by the occasional business trip that took him out of town. The thrill of the hunt, the feeling of power, and the release of ending another life was the only thing that made him feel alive. Without a second thought about Lila, Jack penned a response to the ad, pouring out his desire for adventure, for escape. He didn't sign his real name, of course. He couldn't risk it. But he crafted his words carefully, choosing phrases that he knew would catch the mysterious woman's attention. The next morning he sent the letter and awaited a response with a sense of anticipation he hadn't felt in years. When the reply came, it was like a spark in the darkness. She wanted to meet, tomorrow noon at a bar called O'Malley's. It was perfect. The day dragged on, but finally noon arrived. Jack walked into O'Malley's, scanning the room for the woman who'd written the ad. When he saw her, he froze. Her back was turned, but he recognized the silhouette, the way she held herself. She turned, and their eyes met. It was Lila. A moment of shock passed between them before Lila's lips curled into a slow, knowing smile. "Oh, it's you," she said, her voice a mix of surprise and amusement. They laughed, but it was not a laugh of joy or relief. It was the laugh of two predators who just realized they'd been hunting each other. "I never knew," Jack started, his voice low, "that you like pina coladas and getting caught in the rain." Lila's eyes glittered with a cold, dangerous light. "And I never knew," she replied, "that you like making love at midnight in the dunes on the Cape." As they spoke, the reality of their situation sank in. Both of them had been leading double lives, hiding their true natures behind the facade of a mundane marriage. Jack saw it now. The nights Lila claimed to be at book club meetings, the business trips that coincided suspiciously with news of missing persons. They were alike, two sides of the same twisted coin. The conversation continued. There was a veiled dance around the truth. They were no longer husband and wife, but two killers who'd found their perfect match. The thrill of their discovery filled the air, charged with a dangerous energy. That night they didn't return to their dull routines. Instead, they planned their next adventure together. The dunes on the Cape were just the beginning. They were no longer alone in their dark desires. They'd found in each other a partner, an accomplice. The mundane was left behind, replaced by a new sinister bond. Their story would continue, but now it was not one of tired domesticity. It was a tale of two predators who'd found their perfect prey in each other, ready to carve a path of chaos and murder side by side. As they sipped their pina coladas, the rain began to fall outside, each drop a promise of the thrilling, terrifying escapades yet to come. So an 80s classic and a couple of 70s classics there for you, reinterpreted in the form of horror stories. What did you think of those? It's one of my favourite subgenres, actually. There's quite a lot out there from, classic heavy metal songs turned into horror stories, but this was a little bit of fun. Those last two at the end, they were by Darius McCorkindale, which most of you all know is my pen name, my nom de plume, when I actually get my ass into gear and do some writing. So they were short but sweet. Hope you like those. And that first one was a lot of fun, except for all the men who came crashing down from the sky, I suppose. Well, that's it for Monday. I'll be back again with a podcast tomorrow night, back here on Wednesday. So I'll see you all again very, very soon. Till then, my dear friends, you sleep well, yeah? Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this story today. Really means a lot to me and to the author of the story, of course. Well, if you want to know more about me, I'm pretty much everywhere on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can download my music on SoundCloud. I've got a Patreon if you feel like. Throw me $1 or $2. Very much appreciated. And of course, on Reddit, I have a place where you can leave stories if you want me to read one that you've written. Well, hoping to see you all again very soon. Till then, sweet dreams. Bye-bye.